Hello, welcome to episode number 38 of the Everything NYJ podcast. Liam Johnson, Gino Pagano. We have our very special guest, Harrison Glaser, in the house. Harrison, how you
Woo!
doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. Always love talking about the Jets and doing on my show. Love to come on and talk about it. So excited to be here, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
We appreciate
Absolutely,
you.
man. So, we're going to get into a lot of topics today, but before we get into anything, first things first, I just wanted to mention if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you look below the thumbs up button, there's a subscribe button. Hit that. It helps us bring wonderful guests like Harrison Glazer on. Helps out the channel. If you guys are new here, definitely, I recommend subscribing. We have daily Jets content. We're covering all of training camp and everything NYJ. The name really says it all. We cover it all. So, Harrison, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, man. You can find me on Twitter if you do at NYJets TF Media. It's named after my company, Take Flight Media. You could also find it there. It's got my name. If you type in Harrison Glazer, I'll come up too. You can find me there on Twitter. You can also find me on YouTube. I got my show I do. I go live like this on Mondays where it's a lot of fun. People in the chat, we talk it up. And people bring good stuff and questions, and we just talk about the Jets. It's really awesome. Then throughout the week, I bring, like short content, like 5-6 minute videos of, takes on players and stuff like that. If you guys want to check that out, I'd love if you could. It's called the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. So
Love that.
check that stuff out. Much appreciated.
Love that.
Thank you.
You guys could follow us on social media, on all social media platforms at Everything NYJ. We'll follow you back. We'll talk some football there, So we have a couple questions, well, quite a few questions for Mr. Glazer, and Gino likes doing the questions. Gino, take it away, my friend.
Well, Harrison, first off, I'm a big fan. I know I talked to you a little bit over the years, and I just appreciate your content and just everything what you've done for the Jets community, especially in the sports community, because I know you have a lot of different platforms and everything that you do for New York, especially, with the Jets. I mean, you're, in my mind, you're one of top five, like, best content in my opinion. At least
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I yeah, like I said, little like fanboy a little bit.
I appreciate that, man. I really do, and it's awesome, because it's funny how I got into it. Like everything I do, like on social media, there was always like a reason behind why I started doing it. Just started taking off from there, and I appreciate everybody, that tunes in and subscribes and checks out my content. I love all you guys. Like when I started my videos, I started out with like what's going on in my Jets family because we're all family. So
right. I love that. Well, my first question is, you have a pretty big history with social media. I mean, you're a founder, CEO, you're an owner of Take Flight Media, and also you have the Flight Spit and Fire podcast. You're a reporter, writer, podcast, content creator, and you're a teacher too, right?
Yes, that's actually my day job.
You do it all.
I try.
So my first question is, how did all this come about? Like, what made you go into media, and what made you become a teacher as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. The teacher thing, there's a lot to that one. But I got the opportunity to teach when I was younger. I took martial arts for a little bit. I taught that. I knew that I love teaching, and it's something. Originally, I was doing something else, and then I realized it's actually a lesson I bring to a lot of my students. It's an important thing I say. Just because you're really awesome at something doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it. Like it's your call. It's your life. Like I was excellent in business, and that was my degree, but it's a whole, I wasn't happy with what I was becoming. I didn't like, who I was in that field. And I really wanted to become a teacher. I knew I was when I was younger, and it was a long process. Anyone, if you know anyone who's been a teacher on Long Island, they'll tell you it's not easy. It's almost impossible to get jobs. It's been a process. I almost moved on a couple of times, but I'm thankful to say I'm at a really great school right now, and it's going really awesome with that. But with the Jets content, man, it's interesting. I've always been a big fan. Like I've always been a hardcore fan and love the Jets and follow everything like all the time. And so talk to I used to go to games with my dad and my grandpa and talk about it all the time with my friends and stuff. And I would always notice they would say things like we'd watch the games together and stuff, and I would make a comment, and then like a second later, the commentary guy would say the same thing. Like, and they would always look at me like it seemed to like happen a lot. So they would look at me like, what
Yeah.
it was just something always in the back of my mind. And then, I always like, had like things I felt with the Jets, like, feelings, like, I guess, like what people call takes, like feelings toward a certain player or what I think is going to happen. And I
Right.
just, I kind of, it's interesting. I just kind of, actually, I started on Twitter because someone in teaching told me it was a good thing to go into.
Ooh.
I wasn't really into social media, honestly, at all at that point, but someone said it was a good idea. So I made an account and it kind of lay dormant for a little while. And then I found out about the Jet stuff, and that's where I saw the reporting was going on, and kind of just, started giving my takes and my opinions and my thoughts on stuff. And, and it just, yeah, started going well. And I think the most important thing was just because I was, like, I was coming at it, like, I just wanted to, say things that I was thinking, like, like thoughts I had, like takes I had, like, didn't care what people thought, just wanted to. So I think that,
Yep.
that resonated a lot in the beginning, and that was kind of what took me off. And then it kind of went off from there.
I love that.
Took flight.
Yeah, exactly. It took flight, man. Exactly.
Took
Exactly.
flight.
I love that, and I love the name for your podcast, because literally that's our whole thing on Twitter and Instagram and everything is take flight, jet up, Jet Nation. So it was a perfect like name for it, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. But yeah, it worked out because I know, like, like originally it was Jennifer. We had like we had just recently moved to like Take Flight. So like that, I decided, I wanted to
Okay.
name the company after that. And I,
Yeah.
it's a legit company. Like, I registered it and everything, and I'm excited
Oh
about it.
wow. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
no, and I with teaching, it's difficult, but for a while, like, I have a website. I was writing a lot of articles for a while. That was something I was also into. But like you mentioned, you gotta balance everything. So like now
Oh,
that the summer's going on, I have a lot more time. I'm like, putting a lot more content out on YouTube. When the school year
Right.
starts, it becomes a little bit harder. But yeah, man, I just, for me, it's just, my thoughts, my feelings, honest takes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. What
It's
is
awesome.
so? So this is kind of, I guess, the second part of mine is, what is your favorite stuff and content to cover for the Jets? Because I know you have a lot of stuff that you do with being a teacher, and with the podcast and everything that you do on the side. What is your favorite thing to cover for the Jets? What kind of
Well,
content?
I think the reporting is an interesting outlook. And I kind of, like, mentioned before that everything kind of just happened for a reason. Like, originally it was just takes, like my thoughts, my feelings. And maybe you
Right.
guys might resonate with this. As a fan, I noticed, without throwing any of them under the bus, there were a lot of beat writers that were taking stories and not giving the whole quote. Like, they would take a
Right.
part of the quote, which I know, as a teacher, if you sectionalize a quote, you change the whole intent of it, you change the whole meaning behind it. Like, I would watch the actual press conference and be like, that wasn't what he meant. Like, that wasn't like, and it bothered me a little bit. So I kind of just started
Normally,
like,
normally it was like the worst part of the quote too.
yeah, it usually
Right.
was that. Like,
Yep.
the player would
Right.
say something like, I'm working hard, I'm grinding, I'm doing it, but life's tough. And then they would put out life's tough. And they'd be
Life's
like,
tough.
oh my God. Like, so that always kind of got to
Yeah.
me. So I just started like, being like, I want to put the whole thing out. Like, I want to put out like the important, like, also, like they pick and choose. I put out like, more. I try to put out what, like, is important. He mentions players, things like that. And I try to put the whole quote out. Like, if I cut something, it's because of characters. And I always make sure it's not changing the intent of it. You know what I mean? Like, so that
Right.
was
Right.
something that kind of got me into that, because I saw that happening, especially with polarization. And we saw that with Mackay, right? We saw some beat
Yeah,
writers
that was big.
literally writing, like, we're forgetting about it now. Like, the dude's in great shape. Just a year ago, there were people writing Mackay Becton's going to eat himself to death. Like, that's
Oh
Yes,
gosh. Yeah.
crazy, man.
I remember
So
that. Yep,
that
you're
kind
right.
of got me into that. And then it kind of picked up because people were saying stuff like, I appreciate you giving the whole thing. Because like people would, I guess see it somewhere else, then come to mind and be like, I appreciate you giving the whole quote. It shows the whole meaning of it. It wasn't what this person was spinning it to be. Like, because people try to create a story. That's what it is. And
The
that's the
narrative.
thing with
Yep.
me. Like, I'm a teacher. So you know what I mean? Like, I'm not being paid for this. So I don't need
Right.
to spin anything. And that's like always been my take with it. Like, they're spinning a story because I don't have to spin anything. Like, I want to give it as it is to the fans, because I always felt like that's important to me. Like, so
Right.
that kind of got me into that, and that kind of has been something interesting. I've kind of been doing that since, like, bringing out player quotes and quotes from Coach Sala and things that I felt were, really, engaging to the fan base or exciting to hear.
But yeah, that's
I love
kind
that.
of like similar how like what started for me, because I started the Everything NYJ, the Twitter account. It was really during COVID, like 2020, March of 2020, maybe April. Um, I was just like scrolling through and like I'm seeing like all like kind of like what you said, like these like beat writers, with a bad narrative, or just all these other like podcasters, like they're giving their opinions. Like I wouldn't necessarily agree with all of them. And I was like, listen, like I have my own opinion, and like it started off with Twitter, just going back and forth, and then I'm like, you know what, like let me go behind the camera. The early videos really weren't that great, and I don't think anybody's really is. But it's like I have my own opinions, and like I wanted to get them out there too. And Gino felt the same way, so we're doing it together.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I think that's when the best content comes, when it's just,
Right.
having fun and talking and being honest, and laughing. Like, that's definitely usually the best content.
Yeah, exactly. It feels natural, and it's like we all have like this common bond of this team that hasn't been great over the last 10, 15 years, so it's like, we you on Long Island, I'm sure you see plenty of Jets fans, as do I. It's like you wear your Jet stuff. They normally look at each and just shake your head and say, "Yeah, maybe next year."
Yeah, no, it's
So
so true, man. We think
Gino's
about
not
it.
that lucky where he is. So he's in St. Louis, which is a little far. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
exactly though, it's like with like the beat writers, like a lot of them, they're not even Jets fans. So it's like if you're not a Jets fan, don't tell the Jet fan how to feel. That's kind of my whole thing. It's like, and I would never tell anybody else how to be a fan. It's like, but we all kind of have this same feeling. We've all been in the same boat now, so it's like we know basically what the other fans are thinking. For the most part, at least.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Without going too off the rails, it's kind of similar,
Right.
to like what you, because I don't want to, it can go off the rails with what
It goes
it
off
can
the
be.
rails a lot.
Well, I was going to say it can be similar to like, politics where people always have one spin or another spin, but you could just report the facts. Like this is just the
Right.
fact of what happened. And then the people, like you said, can make their own determination and opinion off of it. There doesn't have to be,
Exactly.
a spin or
Exactly.
something that pre-exposes somebody to thinking something.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Jet fan is in the chat. Buffalo Jet, how you doing, my friend? Glad that you're here.
He was on my show the
So
other day.
you're,
He's fucking awesome.
I saw him. Yep, I saw him on a couple last week. Was it or Monday?
It was just Monday. Yeah, it was just
It was
Monday. It
just
was
Monday,
really
right? Yeah,
awesome
I wasn't sure if
chat
it
it
was
up.
last Monday. This Monday. Yep, I saw the podcast. Awesome stuff, man. Buffalo Jet always has some awesome content. If you guys don't follow him, I definitely recommend subscribing to his YouTube channel because he has great content every single day.
And so this next question I have is, how did you become a Jets fan? Because a lot of people, I get asked all the time in St. Louis, all right, really, you have the Rams to choose from, you have the Bears, you have the Chiefs. Because I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. How did you become a Jets fan? Was it passed on from your family, or did you just become a Jets fan?
Yeah, I love that, man, and I love that. Usually, on shows, you always get to like, talk about that kind of stuff, like fan lineage. Like, I think that's really important because, like, like Liam was just saying, that's what makes it matter. Like, that's like I said, if you don't have, I feel like I'm messing the quote up. It's if you don't have a stake in the game. I think that's it. If you don't have a stake in the game, then you don't care. You know what I mean? Like there's no emotion behind it. Like you don't feel like what the fans feel. So yeah, I've been a fan my whole life. Like I've been bleeding green, like suffering Jets fan for a long
Yeah.
time. My whole life, my whole life. My grandfather was an absolutely huge fan. Like my dad was a big fan, but my grandfather was like hardcore. Like always wanted to go to the games. Fortunately, as he got older, he could go to like one a year, but always wanted to go. Always watching on TV. Got me like obsessed with it. Excuse me. And then also, it's interesting, without getting too, into the psychology of it, it's similar, with like most sons, like with my father, we didn't have the greatest relationship growing up. It wasn't the easiest to talk to him per se, but, like, I guess, people could write a book like Sons and Fathers. Like probably every one of us could write a book like that, like a novel called Sons. So football was like a nice medium that like brought us together, which was really nice because like it was something that we'd always talk about and he was always excited about. And so that was really awesome. Like that got me really into it because it was something that we shared and we could talk about. And then I also, which is really funny, I got into the Madden video game a lot when I was younger. Like really like hardcore into Madden. And I feel like that helped extrapolate my fanhood because I got into like because as a kid that got me into like the draft, like because I would first do like the simulated guys, and you remember like after like it was a little while, it was like I think it was like 14 15 or whatever, they started giving us the actual players, So,
Right.
now you're
Yeah.
like, so it got me more into like the draft and prospects and looking at guys. And and I got really, really into like knowing like their specifics and their matchups because I played a lot of Madden when I was younger. And then that just extrapolated from that. Like, I obviously, unfortunately, as a teacher, can't play as much anymore. I can't remember the last time I unfortunately picked it up, but I'm still like a
Yeah.
hardcore fan.
Yeah.
But I'm really into like the team. Like, I'm really into like, so all of that kind of helped it. But it was really, like going to games when I was a kid with my grandpa, with my dad. Like, I point this out to Jet fans all the time. Like, if you think back to games when you were a kid, like maybe you remember a handful of plays or like a touchdown. You don't remember the whole game. Like, you can, but what you do
Right.
remember is you went with your dad. You remember you had a good conversation. You threw
Yeah.
the football around in the parking lot. You barbecued together. Like, that's what stuck with you. Like, that's what resonates. And I feel like that's such an important thing about football. Like, so many people don't see that. People are like, oh, it's just a sport, but it's more than that. It's something that literally bonds people together. Like, it's eternal
Yeah.
bond that can be passed down through families. And that was a big thing for me, like, going to games when I was a kid and all that. That got me really into the Jets, all of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
It's an
I
outlet,
love
you know? It's a place for people to escape. And even like what you were saying with Madden, I really do feel like it kind of like boosts like like your
Me
fandom,
too.
because like I remember like I had Geno Smith like holding a fucking a Lombardi trophy. It's like it could happen.
The same thing. I remember, dude, so many years of like before, what years before they had the actual draft guys where I would, the Jets quarterback wasn't that good. I would have a guy and I'm
Right.
trying to remember some names. Like, I can't even remember some of them, but they were, I think it was like Terrell Bryan. There were so many different guys, that you got to that point. And yeah, and that got me big into like, that was the first time like playing Madden as a kid that I started to like know everybody on the team. Like, you knew the main guys, but playing
Yeah.
Madden, you
Yep.
knew everyone. Like, I was subbing
Yeah. The
people
third
in based on
string.
alignments, and that's what got me into seeing that, and that got me. So kind of like all that got me, elevated into
A-
it a bit more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really interesting because this is one of the reasons why I became a fan too. These McFarlane figures, because my dad always gave me Jets McFarlane figures. So I blame video games and how I became a Jets fan and McFarlane figure because he gave me just a crap ton of them. I'm talking about like Curtis Martin. I talk about Curtis Martin, talk about Joe Namath, Pennington,
Was he a Jets
and
fan?
no,
That's
he was
funny.
just
They was
giving
by.
me McFarlane figures. That was like my like allowance. Like, here, you did good. Here's a McFarlane figure. Oh, you mobile on. Here's a McFarlane figure. Like, I was like, okay. And then he just gave me a lot of them, and I just play video games with them too. And I was like, I think I'm a Jets fan. This was when I was 9. I've been a Jets fan ever since. So it's just I totally get it.
He was confused.
Yeah, I mean,
He just saw
because
green and white and said, "Okay, I have a lot of these."
right.
So
And he didn't even mean to because that was when the St. Louis Rams were here. So it was just really funny in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, you like dodged a bullet now. Like, if you don't mind, if you don't mind me asking a question, I would ask,
yeah.
as someone in St. Louis, what's it like there? Like, are people just like burning Rams jerseys, or have they become like LA Rams fans,
Well, it's so funny because I get
or is
this
it like a
question.
combination?
Right. I get this question. I get this question all the time, and I feel like my answer is always different. But I think my answer to what about the burning one is some of them did because everyone doesn't like Stan Kroenke in the way that whole thing ended. Bringing the team, the previous owner, may she rest in peace, she brought it from LA to St. Louis. And then Kroenke was here for a long time, and then he brought it back to LA. So it was one of those things where if it never came to St. Louis, because the Cardinals, it was the St. Louis Cardinals under the Arizona Cardinals, so we wouldn't even have a team, and they possibly could have won a Super Bowl while Kurt Warner would have been there in LA. But for this one, they went to the Bears and Chiefs side hardcore after the Rams left. Now there's a lot of my friends and family that still
Well, the
stuck with the
Kansas City one
Rams.
makes sense because it's Kansas City, Missouri. That makes
Exactly.
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And
And
a
they're
lot
pretty
of
good
people.
too.
Yeah. Now,
Exactly. That's not a hard one to jump on the fan
Yeah.
wagon of.
right. My mother-in-law is that way. She loved Kurt Warner, loved Marshall Faulk, and she was like, you know what, I really like Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna go, more of that route. I'm like, you know what, you do you, but I call our bandwagon a little bit because of that. But no, there's a lot of mixed teams here. For anything, Cowboys, Bears, Packers, Chiefs, Rams, Steelers, even the Ravens. I mean, it can go on and on. Even the Seahawks. So I'm always alone. But now I think since I've been doing this podcast and being on social media, I have reached out to a lot of Jet fans, and even if they're younger or older, I'm in the middle because I'm turning 30. But some of these guys are like in college, or some of them are like in their 40s or 50s, and I'm like, they're Jet fans in St. Louis. It's probably because of it's cheaper to live in St. Louis probably than to live in New York. But
It is.
It was cheaper to live probably kind of anywhere, but
Yeah,
specifically Long
yeah,
Island. Yeah.
yeah.
but yeah, that was it, and it was really nice because I always felt alone for a long time being a Jet fan, and then when I'm going to go to New York now, I'm like, so this is what it like is being a Jets fan. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's literally half and half. Either with LA, you're not with LA, but I'm at 2%. I got Jets 2% in St.
Don't worry, Gino. When you come to New York, you will be surrounded by all of us.
Get to wear my
He's going to his
Rangers
first ever
jersey.
Jet
It'll
game.
be
He's
good.
never been to a Jet game.
Oh, dude, you're in for a treat, man. You're in for an absolute
He's going to the home
treat.
opener. Yep, for his
Oh, man,
30th
Jet fans
birthday.
getting so pumped up. We get so
30th
pumped
birthday,
up.
so I'm pretty happy. It's gonna be
I'm
awesome.
excited for him.
Yeah. And
I haven't
I
been to
remember going to games when we were terrible, and like the
Yeah.
fans were pumped up.
Yeah.
Because like that's the thing. Just recently, like like far away, money, games are expensive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I used to go a lot when I was like with my parents when I was younger and stuff. And even when we weren't that good, the fans were excited.
Yeah.
So
It's like
I
always
can't even
exciting.
imagine this year it's going to be like cloud nine. Like there's going to be people putting their faces through their car door.
That's true. No, dude. I mean, everyone's jacked up.
Really? No, yeah. And they have every right to be. Like you guys
Yes,
know, you guys
we
can
deserve
comment.
this.
I've been saying for a long time, like Joe Douglas is great. Like long ago, when everyone's like, "You're out of your mind, like you're crazy," I'm like, I see it in the moves. I'm like, eventually, everyone's gonna see it, and they're seeing it. Like this guy is he's taking us to the promised land. Like I've even gone as far to say, and I totally believe Zach's gonna be the guy. You guys know I'm a huge Zach fan, but I think I can almost go as far to say, let's just pretend for a second Zach isn't the guy. I think Joe's done enough with this team he wouldn't, they wouldn't get rid of him. I think he would
Leo
stay.
was just saying that the
I
other
would.
day,
I
too.
actually think he's done enough. Like people are like I think his last two drafts could possibly be two of the greatest back-to-back drafts in the history of the sport. Like when it's all said and
Agreed.
done. Like
I
just
agree.
insanity. Like what he's taken in these last two drafts. Like you look at those first few rounds, and it's like he was going to trade up a fourth time to get Brees Hall. Like it's just it's crazy. It's crazy.
You're getting me excited, man. You're getting me
Dude.
excited.
And I'm looking for receipts when we win a Super Bowl. I don't want none of this bandwagon stuff. I've been a Jets fan since I was 9 years old. I know Liam talks about it all the time. I know how much you're a Jets fan. I don't want this like last 2 years stuff.
You know,
Well,
my rule.
Yeah.
My rule is if you didn't cry for 2-14 when Adam Gase is here, you're not allowed to be a fan. Unless you weren't born or something. But other than that, no. If you didn't have to sit through Gase, if you didn't have to sit through Todd Bowles, then no, you cannot be a Jets fan. I'm sorry. That's my rule.
Well, what do you think?
Catch us on the next one.
What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I look at it, and it's kind of in a way a good thing. Like you look at when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, everybody was a bandwagon Patriot fan. Like everyone was like, "I love the Patriots." Like Tom Brady, yay, love him, woo! Like everyone becomes a bandwagon fan. It's gonna happen if the Jets become good, and that's kind of an exciting thing. Kind of like I get it. Like and I get it too as a hardcore fan. But when I look at it, is like they're never gonna feel the same way when we win. That's how I look at it. Like they've been there even from the Adam Gase time. That's only a few years. They weren't there through like when it was awful in the early 2000s and when things were possibly going to turn around with Pennington and things looked beautiful and it just
2002
through injury. And then we thought again we've been up and down like crazy. Like it's been so much, and there are fans. Like I talk about myself, being like you, Gino. I'm 30. I'm going to be turning 33 later in the month. Excuse me. But
well, happy early birthday.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Liam. Appreciate it. But there's people. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. But there's fans. Like when I put stuff out like that on Twitter about my grandpa and being a fan for so long, there's people like, I've been a fan since 60 this. Like I was a fan when they were the Titans. Like there have been Jet fans, like, from that, unfortunately, like my grandfather, you can mention, aren't even there anymore. Fans. So the people who come around recently, it's going to happen. They're going to jump on the bandwagon,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to feel the same. It's not as gratifying. It's not going to be anywhere near as gratifying.
If you went through the Darnold days, if you went through like the Darnold days and the Fitzpatrick days, I'll cut you a little bit of slack a little bit. But I mean, I really thought we would be a great team with Favre, Sanchez, Rex Ryan.
Dude, that Favre year was amazing.
Dude, that Favre.
And then he got hurt.
So much
confidence
bro, what's crazy is like he breaks his ribs. He's still like what 9-2, and they're like, you can't play, and he's like, I want to play.
Yeah.
Like I love that, man. He's like 41. He'd play until they murdered him out there.
Dude,
like, oh,
yeah,
100%. So I guess my next question with that is, what is your favorite memory at MetLife? Since you've been to a lot of games, and I know you said before, we've been to a lot of games where they just sucked. So
do you have a favorite? Do you also have a favorite memory at the Meadowlands too? Can you do a little two-parter?
Yeah. I mean, for the old stadium, I wouldn't say a specific game. There's so many that were, great where they came back toward the end. Really, those Pennington years were special, especially those Vinny Testaverde, like those end of the Vinny Testaverde, beginning of the Pennington years before he got hurt, when he had Coles and Moss and Crabette and Martin in the backfield. And that's kind of the point now. We talk about with Joe Douglas. Like, you need talent. You need talent all around that quarterback. And that was just such a talented team. And man, those were some great memories. But I think it's corny. One of my it was kind of like one of my first memories as a Jet fan. It always stuck with me. My dad took me to my first game. I was like 7 or 8 or so. I remember we were playing the Dolphins. I remember that. And I remember we won like in the last few minutes. It's so corny, but I was a kid. I remember he just turned to me and he's like, the Jets won because of you. And I believed it. Like I legitimately believed it. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I like, that's when I wanted to go to more games. So I guess that's an important moment because that was literally the beginning of like when it started. But those years with Pennington, man, just so many great memories because fans nowadays, they don't get it. He was an unbelievable quarterback. I agree. I remember watching him when he first started back at Marshall.
Underrated.
Yeah, before he tore that rotator cuff twice, he had arm strength. There was arm strength there. He was the most accurate quarterback ever, man. Like one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever. That's why after those tears, I mean, he had no velocity left, but he's still able to get it where it has to go. He's like the most, like he's throwing like lame ducks to go 5 yards, but it's working. Like it's crazy. But man, when he was in his prime, I remember like that was another moment too. I turned to my dad. It was the game where Vinny Testaverde got hurt. And Chad Pennington came in. And we knew he was a top draft pick. We didn't know that much about him. He comes in, boom, touchdown. Comes back on the field, next drive, boom, touchdown. Just starts lighting it up. I just watched unbelievable mechanics, precision, the way he rips a defense apart. I remember I turned to my dad. I was like, this guy is going to win us the Super Bowl. And I stand by the fact that if he hadn't got hurt, people say I'm crazy, I don't care. If he hadn't got hurt, I think he would have went par for par with Tom Brady. I don't think Tom Brady would have had 6 or 7. I think it would have been like Pennington 3 and Brady 3. And they would have been like even going back and forth. Like he was that good.
Well, not only that, Vinny Testaverde was unbelievable too. And then when Favre came in.
That 98 year, man.
And then then I know Sanchez, everyone was up and down about Sanchez, but we surrounded Sanchez with a great team overall. I know there's a lot of drama, during that whole thing. But like even Sanchez got me pumped up. Because, I mean, you bring in LT, you bring in Jason Taylor, you have Chris Jenkins, you have Damian Woody. We're bringing in all these, like, even Cromartie. Like, I'm like, what is going on?
Do you mind if I'm actually really glad you brought that up, and maybe you guys would agree. When Darnold was playing bad, there were a lot of people, like, comparing Darnold to Sanchez. I felt like that was such disrespect to Sanchez. People are like, Darnold's so bad. Sanchez was not as bad as everybody made him out to be. Like, he wasn't the guy that was going to, like, put it on my back and win. But like you just said, 09, 010, when the talent is there, he freaking almost took us to the Super Bowl. Like, I thought it was crazy that people were putting Darnold and Sanchez in the same sentence. I was like, such disrespect to Mark Sanchez.
Just because they
a lot of that
USC,
too.
Just because they came from USC, they're comparing, the USC quarterbacks who's better. In my mind, it's going to be Sanchez, no matter what. By
look who's being compared to, like Barkley.
That's right. Oh
like who's that other Leinart? Freaking Leinart, I think was another one. Like just flameouts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not really a bad, whatever. But a lot of it though is like, Sanchez had like a lot of like stupid moments with him. The eating a hot dog on the sideline, the butt fumble, and then
Yeah,
you got Darnold getting the mono.
yeah.
And that was a very
Being
good team, but that was
ghosts.
Eric Mangini's team. When Rex Ryan actually got his hands on that team is when it fell apart.
A lot of people
And
have
I
said
stand behind that.
yeah, well,
And yeah,
I got to give it to you because I guess and at that time I was in high school. I wasn't following as closely, so I
I was in
can't
middle
speak from
school.
personal account. Yeah, but I know a lot of people that were, like a lot of older fans have said that. I've seen a lot of people say on Twitter that it was Rex Ryan that made the team fall apart, and then obviously when
Yeah.
Itzik comes in, it just goes downhill from
Yeah, it
there.
didn't help.
That was when everything fell
Yep.
to shit.
Yep. But with Darnold, like I liked him and I wanted to believe in him. And I had that
I
false
never
hope.
did. Never did.
No?
Well, we all did.
Never
We
did.
His
all
rookie year I did.
I never did. I never thought he
I
was the
think
guy.
back to his first game, that Detroit
Never.
game, and the first play sums up, Sam Darnold throwing a pick six. That sums him up right there. But it's like the Green Bay game. I think back to even that Cowboys game. I think back to the 92-yard touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson. Like he gave me a lot of false hope where I thought like, all right, maybe we have something here. We get the right coach, which is why when they got rid of Gaze, like I was like, are we gonna keep him? Like I kind of wanted to keep Sam Darnold for another year. I'm glad that we didn't. I'm glad that we didn't pass up on Zach, honestly. Um, but yeah, it was just like a lot of false hope with him, and it's like I don't know, man. Like he's still playing as bad as he did, his rookie year, and his rookie year was his best year, but it's still not great. And I just think he's going to be like one of those backup quarterbacks, bouncing from team to team to team. So
I don't
guess it
know. I
was
mean,
false hope again by a quarterback. My
see,
heart was broken yet again.
Harrison, I'm very picky when it comes to quarterbacks.
I'm
So
with you. I'm with you
I
100%. I don't know if you remember my whole like before we took Zach, I was really big in my QB eval. Like I don't do it as much anymore because, as like as a teacher, I try to dive into what the Jets need. So like that year, I was really deep into my QB eval, and
right,
Zach was checking all my boxes well before everyone else. Like back
right.
in back in December when no one was talking about him, I was like at the time Fields was like the consensus second guy, and I was like I just didn't see it. Like I did not like him, but I just felt like I look at it as the same thing like that, like Trevor Lawrence had. It was interesting. So many people were like, it's crazy how they didn't get it. Like so many people were like turning on Zach and saying like, oh, the competition, it wasn't good enough. But what everyone didn't get is they were actually making the argument for Zach and against the other guys because the other guys are part of a top program. They're being put into a program with amazing pedigree, with excellent receivers and excellent coaching, playing at a top level. Zach took a team like BYU that wasn't at a top level and brought it to a top level on his own. Like that's a major
Yes.
difference. Guys like Trevor Lawrence, he was plugged in at Clemson. A lot of guys been plugged into Clemson and look really freaking good. And that was my thing with Ohio State. Like I explained this when I did my whole QB thing that I kind of sat there and watched film on Ohio State for like hours and hours. And I'm like, am I seeing their tells? Like they kind of give away their offense. Their extra routes and their safety routes are very easy to spot. They're smart, but it takes all the mentality out of it. Like I said that about Justin Fields. Like he doesn't have to think. Like his brain is off out
Right.
there. And that is what scared the hell out of me. And that's what I didn't like. So yeah, Zach was always my guy. I was like, this is the second guy. I even said in some ways he was better than Trevor. Like I really,
Yeah.
really liked him.
They're
Like my
saying a
favorite
lot.
thing about him was his pocket awareness. That was my favorite thing. Like
Yeah.
especially like people crapped on him so much in that Coastal Carolina game. They're like he was running for his life. I'm like, did we watch the same game? Because that's the game that made me realize that he's amazing in the pocket. Like he was making unbelievable reads and throws on the run. Like before that, everyone kept saying the offensive line doesn't fall apart that much. Well, that game you got to see it fall apart. And he played freaking awesome. Like he lit it up,
Yeah.
making great throws and great reads and great decisions. I'm like, this was a great game for Zach Wilson. Everyone's like, it was a bad game. I'm like, did we watch the same game?
I
A lot
got
of
you.
the critics were talking about his attitude, that he had he was like a spoiled rich kid. He had a bad attitude. I haven't seen any of that to back that statement up. Maybe it's just a bunch of Zach Wilson haters out there, but I don't know. I don't
It's
see
the
it.
same kind of thing. And I put it out on Twitter too, because again, it's I feel like, like almost like a duty to like, bring out like the truth. And when that
Yeah.
happened, immediately when that happened, a bunch of players on BYU and coaches came forward and said, this is crap. It's not
Yeah.
true. It's not even remotely close to true. He's a leader. He's a great guy. It's total crap. But for some reason that got like buried. So like I focused on that. I put it out. I had it on my Twitter page. I put it out many times. I kept like reminding people because it was a rhetoric that was being spun, and we clearly get it now. It was that tactic that teams use to try to get a guy to fall. We clearly get that now. Someone saw how talented he was, and they saw the opportunity to screw with it, like some executive somewhere.
I'm with
It's
you.
so common in the NFL. If you have a narrative, if you don't like a person, then you're gonna make a story out of nothing.
Yeah,
So
or you're hoping from the fall. You're hoping, they're considering him the
yeah,
second guy, and maybe we can get him at 8, or maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that too. Yep.
I'm with you on that. Do you go to training camp much? Like, have you gone to training camp much at all?
I had the rare opportunity back in 2018, and shout out to them. I did a short stint, and actually I feel kind of bad I didn't mention this. It actually got me into the Jet stuff as well. Jet Nation actually allowed me to come on as a writer for a short amount of time.
Oh wow.
And I was only there for a
Awesome.
little bit of time, but they brought me on, and I got to do some writing, and that really got me engaged in it as well. Got me excited
Okay.
about, reporting on the Jets and writing stuff, and realizing like, yeah, I could do this. And it's a lot of fun too. So,
That's
it
awesome.
works. But yeah, so at 2018, I got the rare opportunity for one day. They got like a pass for like a week for like camp pass, and they gave us the interim writers the opportunity to pick a day. So I got to go, and it was awesome. It was really cool. And I say to all fans who just don't get it, when you're on the sideline there, so you realize how big those dudes are. Like you think they're
Yeah.
big when you're watching TV. It's like when you're standing there, you get it. Like you get how big they are, you get how fast they're moving, you get how hard they're hitting. Like it's almost like it feels different when you're on that sideline right there. And it's cool because fans get to go and they sit them right kind of where the media is. So it's pretty much the same kind
Oh
of
yeah.
perspective.
Oh, I love that.
So
Oh, that's
When you were younger, did you ever go to Hofstra?
oh man, I love that. Remember they had that. I
Yeah.
forgot what they
Yep.
called it, but remember there was like a jet day where like they had the inflatable things and you got to
hmm
run on them, and then they had the football things like the gauntlet games. I loved it, man. I did that at least 3 or 4 times. That was
I used to go all
awesome.
the time when I
And
was a kid.
sometimes if you were lucky, like it was the '90s Jets, so they weren't nobody good, but they had a whole group of Jet guys that were there doing autographs. So that was kind of cool.
That's
But I
cool.
remember I asked my dad, I'm like, do any of these guys matter? And he's like, no. So I was like,
I
okay.
I tell Gino a lot. I tell Gino all the time when they were doing Hard Knocks 2010. They were at Hofstra, and for some reason I was there, but I had like a hard hat, and it said Jets on and stuff, and I was just too busy getting all the cheerleaders to sign it, and I was just hanging out with them the whole time. That I
Got it
don't
figured
have
out.
many memories from that practice, but I remember being there and just didn't spend the time with the Jets themselves. But I totally screwed it up though, because I have like Jennifer's autograph and like Amy, from the flight crew back then, but
or
the
Hillary
players were
Hillary
actually.
If you
B
don't
or
mind, I
Hillary
don't want, I don't
A or
mean to take
Hillary
us off
C.
topic, but I think it's because you brought up Hofstra. It's just such an important thing. That was like the one last thing that connected the Jets to New York, right? Like that was
Yes.
the
Yep.
one last thing that connected us here. Like that was our
Yeah. That
memory. Now it's
Portland.
like there's literally nothing here anymore. Like for all
There's
intents and purposes,
nothing
I
New
love
York.
my Jets. I love my Jets, but we really are the New Jersey Jets right now.
Yeah. No, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Like I
See,
loved when we were at Hofstra. I even like I pointed it out and I tweeted it to Woody, and unfortunately hasn't responded. They should come back to Hofstra like a few times a year. You know what I mean?
Or even
Like
agreed.
do
Portland. I mean,
do
I wouldn't be able to go
something
to
on Long
Portland.
Island, yeah, or do something in the area, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
loved
I
when they
have
had
said,
it.
and I actually just said it before we came on the air. I was tweeting with Gotham City, and Gotham City just put out a picture of like a modern like MetLife Stadium, saying like the Jets deserve their own stadium. It would never happen, but I've been saying knock down the Coliseum because nobody's playing there anymore, and just build the Jet Stadium right there. You have the Marriott across the street. The out of
That'd be a
state fans can
dream.
come in.
That'd
It
be a
could
dream.
happen.
Well,
It
remember
will
we were
never
going to have the
happen.
West
But
Side Stadium. There was those rumors for a long time. They
yeah,
were back in 2012 about that West
yeah,
Side Stadium, and you're not getting into all the
it,
politics about it. Like it got nixed by
yeah.
certain groups and everything, and it didn't work out. But man, that would have been amazing. Like having a stadium in New York City. The Jets probably would have played there. The Olympics would have been there that year.
Yeah, as long as the Johnsons are owning the Jets, they're never coming to New York. They're not leaving MetLife. They're not leaving the Giants. They could in 2026, but it's not happening. Let's face it.
I always hated the Johnsons. Like I even wrote an article like
Yeah,
on my website. I don't know if you ever saw it, where I basically it was a while back, talking about all the bad decisions they made and
they
demanding that they
did.
sell the team. I even started for a
yeah,
while, and it took off on Twitter. Actually, I think it was around when we when Gase was here. So it was around when Gase was here. I started the hashtag Sell Our Team movement on Twitter, and that
Yep.
actually started to take off. And that actually had like a little bit of a following, was trending for a little while, which is really cool. But I've said it before. I honestly believe in Joe Douglas so much. Like, he's convinced me so much. So the fact that the Johnsons have handed him the keys, which that was the biggest thing for me, and that was the biggest
Yep.
thing I called out in the article. The micromanaging of the Johnsons through the Itzik years, through, like you said, the Mangini years was disgusting. It was ridiculous. Like, that was the problem. So I said, if they truly handed Joe the keys and like, this is your car to do with what you will, and they step back, I'm cool with them. And I feel like these last 2 drafts, I mean, we've never done this before. So I feel like this is clearly Joe Douglas having the reins. Otherwise, it would have went to shit.
I mean,
unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. It's like with Adam Gase. You know, Adam Gase was GM for a little bit. It's like they let him do what he wants, and then it's like,
bro, I still try to get over the fact that they made him like the god of the Jets, like he was Bill Belichick, like he was Emperor Palpatine, like he's GM and like he's everything. Like, I was like, this is crazy. Like, when did he become Bill Belichick? Like, who's anointing this guy?
With the sell the team thing, Gary Vee kind of, chimed in too, and then he's like, because he wants to buy the Jets, and I think that's everybody's dream. It's just, I don't see the Johnsons ever selling it. And when the Jets do, like, like when they draft players and like they're on the phone with them, you hear like Salah like sauce all pumped up, and Joe Douglas like, let's fucking go, he's all excited, and then you have like Woody Johnson so awkward, like, hello. It's just
he's the business guy. Yeah, and that's why I've always felt
awkward.
that if Salah and Joe have all the reins, which it seems like, they're just the
They
owners.
do.
Like you said, they're like, the guy in the background that's like, hello, thank you for coming. like
Yeah,
you see him on the
he's
sideline
so
like with Carl Lawson, but he's giving him the pat on the back. I felt like it was like the thing from Airplane when he's like, I want you to know we're all doing a good job and we're all counting on you.
I love it.
But as long as they're out of the picture, I'm cool. Like, I'm cool. If they want to step back in and micromanage, then I'm back to sell the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Woody Johnson's Twitter is pretty cool, though. I love his Twitter account, I do. He's one of my favorite followers on Twitter.
Yeah, he was smart. He did a good job making it so that there's exclusive video content that he puts out that the Jets don't put out. That was smart business.
Yeah, there's no way that it's him running the page, but whoever's doing it is doing a great job.
That's why, and I say that all the time,
like,
like when I comment on it and I like ask Woody, I know for like, I know I'm humoring myself. Like, I've done times where like asked for like something like an opinion, and I know I'm like, okay, it's not really him. Like, what am I doing?
Whoever you are back there, you're doing a great job. Oh man,
it's true. If they go back to micromanaging everything,
Zach said the same thing, and it's a big deal. Like, people make a big deal about Zach's social media. I don't know if you guys caught this. As you guys, I mentioned I do all the press releases, try to bring all this stuff. They asked him about that, and Zach made a big deal of saying, "I don't do my social media." Zach said, I don't have, he said, I don't have my cell phone on, like, I don't have social media apps on my cell phone.
Yeah,
like,
he deletes his apps, yep.
That's what he said. Like, and they didn't believe him. Like, I was like, at one point, they asked the same thing like 4 times. They're like, you really delete them? Like, I thought he was going to be like, what did I say?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I made a video about that yesterday, too. And, I was just like, maybe he could put his phone on, like, do not disturb, or he could shut his phone off. Like, I don't think you need to go as far as deleting the app out of your phone, but...
Well, he said on Twitter, he said he has a social media team that actually puts all the tweets together. That is not really him, which I like. Again, he kept, and that's what everyone, like, they made a whole big deal about the social media part. But the whole point he was making was, I'm dedicated to football. Like, all I care about is football. I'm going to let other people deal with the social media crap because I only care about football. Like, that was the part that got lost in it. Like, that was what he was really saying.
Yeah, then it's like Zach Wilson's this weirdo that doesn't use social media in 2022. Yeah, another negative spin.
Yeah, exactly. But what he's saying is, I'm dialed in. Exactly. I don't care about the outside noise, which is what you want in a quarterback. It's exactly what you want. So yeah, people can make the spins all the time, but it's a very good thing.
Yep, I agree.
So I guess overall, you're saying is you love the coaches, you love the GM, but the owner is kind of like you wait and see kind of thing. Overall,
well, I've never been a fan of the owners in the past, and that's why I look at it as, if they want to just let Joe do his thing, I love Joe, I'm cool with it. But if they want to start it
too, you like Salah LaFleur,
and that's I believe in Salah. Like, I go far enough to say I think already Joe Douglas is a great GM. I've said it years past. I stand to that. I believe in Robert Saleh. I believe in the culture he's putting together. The players want to come here. They want to play for him. They love what he's putting together. I think Brees Hall said it the best. Like they asked him about it and he compared it to what they have at Iowa State, which is I blanking on the guy's name, but it's the guy that a lot of Jet fans wanted anyway. Brees Hall said that at Iowa State, there's a culture. And if you don't buy into that culture, you can get the hell out. And he said, that's exactly
Right.
what I felt when I got in here, that there's a culture, there's a way things are done. And that was so I really believe in Robert Saleh. I wouldn't go as far to say he's great like Joe Douglas, but I believe in him and I think he's the right guy for the job.
I love that.
I agree.
So
I
what
agree.
about the draft picks over the past 3 years that they brought in? Because Joe Douglas has been the GM for the past 3 years. What do you think is your favorite part about having these draft picks, and who was your guy like that you wanted? Who's
Well,
the
the
guy?
favorite part is honestly just having them because, that was the biggest thing
Yeah.
we talk about as Jet fans in the past. The biggest problem we always had was whiffing on the draft. Like, I made a
Right.
huge thing, like, and that was, like I mentioned, like, I used to write a lot on my website. This is back when I was writing on my website. I put an article out because back in 2020, so many people were crapping on Joe Douglas for not spending a lot in free agency. And I was like, hold on,
Yeah.
guys, wait a minute. No, we're preconditioned, is what I was saying. Like we
Right.
have this mentality because of the shitty GMs before us who don't know how to draft, literally don't know how to draft, so they're signing free agents. I make the joke, if you only sign free agents, you're basically saying, well, I can't draft and I don't know how to evaluate talent, so I'm going to let everyone else evaluate talent and pick up their scraps.
Yeah, the known
That's basically what
commodities.
you're saying. That's what
Yep.
they couldn't draft to save their lives. So we always, and I felt this way too. I was like, wait, where's my big free agency? Then I was like, oh, crap. Like I've been duped. Like I was ready for that big free agency splash because that's what we always did. We always did big in free agency and whiffed on the draft. Joe didn't spend a lot because also he was fixing the budget. That's another thing I mentioned. It's literally
the cap.
McCagnon bankrupted us. But people don't give Joe enough credit. He went from when he came in, we were one of the poorest teams in the NFL. Within 2 years in 2021, we were the third or fourth wealthiest team in the league. And that's why he didn't do much in free agency in 2020 because he had to fix it and he had to evaluate the roster of what he had. Because remember in 2020, he came in after the fact, right? Like people forget that.
Yeah.
Like I joke about that all the time. Could you imagine Joe's interview? Like, okay, so we had free agency, we had the draft, the team's done. Do you want it?
But
do you want it? Like it's like he came in after the fact. So like 2020 was like people crapped on him for like bringing in guys like I'm blanking on the name, like that veteran
Ryan
center.
Khalil.
People crapped on him for that, but again, he missed free agency. He missed the draft. He didn't have anything. He's trying to make something work. So bringing in anybody, I thought that was awesome. Like people weren't giving.
It wasn't really a desirable spot at the time either. Like there, I can't imagine there was a list of guys that wanted to come play for the Jets around that time.
Yeah, and that's part, like you said, the culture change. It's people want to play for us now. They want to play for Joe Douglas. They want to play for Robert Saleh.
I touched on that early, I think, on the Monday show. Guys like CJ Azuma, he wants to be here. Lincoln Tomlinson wants to be here. It's like you have these guys that want to be here, and it's a change of pace. It feels good, and it really it reassures the fans that we're heading in the right direction, and I think it really helps the culture in the locker room that these players, these rookies see like, hey, these veterans want to be here, so then we want to be here, and they all truly believe that they're building something special, and I think that's really one of the coolest parts, honestly.
I agree. I don't know if you remember. Do you guys remember Robert Saleh did that thing about? He said it was a Navy SEALs test where he talked about productivity versus being a problem.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes, I did. That was last year, I think.
Felt like I think it was actually just a few months ago. I could be wrong. I think it was just a few months ago, but it was big. And
whatever. I do remember what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
It didn't get a lot of credit because it's exactly that. He pointed out that, you would think you'd want a guy with high productivity overall, no matter what. But he's like, studies and statistics like the Navy SEALs have shown, you're better off with a guy with lower productivity, but the build with the right stuff, gonna not fall out of line. Like, I forgot the word he used. He used a specific word. But being like the right kind of person, as opposed to someone like you said, who's a cancer in the locker room, but has an amazing talent. And I think that's why we look in the past. We saw guys like T.O. basically do whatever the hell they wanted. It doesn't work like that anymore. We saw that with Antonio Brown. People were like, we don't give a shit. Like, we don't care that you're amazing. You can walk.
Well, another thing that Saleh said.
Off, so.
He did at MetLife. Yep.
At MetLife.
Yep. Well, Saleh used to preach a lot last year, like throughout the season and preseason. The difference between player A and player Z is, really just the amount of reps that they get, it's the training that they get. And I think he really stands behind that. And, we've seen him, even like last year, take average players and kind of elevate them, like guys like, even like Bryce Hall, like he was our number one corner last year. I don't think he's gonna be the number one corner this year, but like he takes these like average players and he kind of elevates them. They're not great players. They're not these huge like splash move, uh, household names. If you're not a Jets fan, you probably don't know a lot of these players, which is fine with me. But I think that's like one of the cool things that Robert Saleh is actually doing, And I'm a big Robert Saleh fan, just like you said, just to put that out there.
So, Harrison, I got a three-part question for you. This is what's coming up, during the season. I want to go through training camp right now. We're in our second week. We got the green and white scrimmage this Saturday. Let's go. What do you think
I'll
is
be there.
good going through training camp? And then let's see your season expectations, and let's go through each game on what you think wins and losses look like. So let's start with training camp. How do you think training camp is going overall for the Jets right now, going into
training camp is going absolutely fantastic. Jet fans are loving it. And there's been a couple of guys, and I've done, like mentioned earlier, I do, like short 4-6 minute videos on my channel. I did a bunch on those guys. Yesterday was on Elijah Moore. Man, Elijah Moore has been an absolute star. And I've said this myself, because when we first drafted him, I was one of the guys egg on my face. I was like, he's only 5'8". Can he really be an outside guy? Like, I questioned
that was my guy.
It. And I gotta say, I am thankful that I am dead wrong. Like, I watched him last year, and watching him, I was like, I'm totally wrong. Like, this dude lined up against some of the best corners in the league and was going pound for pound, going back and forth, tit for tat, making catches. He looked like he could be a real wide receiver one. So, like, I was saying all offseason, like, he's the guy that's going to break out. Because I want Garrett Wilson to break out, but look at Elijah Moore last year. As a rookie, he took him a little while to come on. Unfortunately, he got banged up. Thankfully, it was minor. But we see that. Rookies get banged up, unfortunately. Not everyone comes on immediately. Elijah's going into his second year. So, like, this is going to be huge. I've been saying I think Elijah is going to break out. Like, this dude. And everyone's like, oh, what if Garrett Wilson's a wide receiver one? That's awesome. Like, so we have two wide receiver ones. There's no law saying that you can only have one. there's no rule. Right. So, like, back in the day, we had one of our last best team in 2015 was when we had Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, two guys that put up over 1,000 yards. Like, and I really confidently believe, obviously not this year, but within a couple of years, these could be two guys, I think, that could become one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. Guys that are just putting up 1,000 yards. Like, I love it, man. But I think Elijah Moore has been a star. Quinnen Williams has been a star. They've been talking about him a lot, that he's in the backfield a lot. And I think Connor Hughes pointed it out, and I noticed this as well. You got to give the credit to the fact that the offensive line is much, much better this year, right? Like, it's not like last year where Quinnen's blowing through like scrubs. That's the thing. Quinnen's now blowing through Laken Tomlinson. Like, he's blowing through AVT. So he's playing quality Pro Bowl. AVT is going to be a Pro Bowler. So he's playing against Pro Bowl caliber guards. So it's a much bigger competition than last year. And people said it. I think it was Sheldon Rankins who said it, that Quinnen looks the best he's ever been. He's like living in the backfield. So, man, he could be a guy. Maybe he gets that double-digit sack year. Maybe it finally comes. There's so many exciting things, man. Carl Lawson being back. We've talked about, Carl Lawson. Every time he's come back from injury, he's had career years. It's always happened. Every time he comes back, career years. Because he always works so hard, puts the effort in. He always comes back better than he was. And he literally said that. He's going to come back better than what he was. Like in 2018, he had his injury. Look at 2019 and 2020. He absolutely killed it. Like 2020 was unbelievable. So he's another guy that could – it's amazing, man. There's a lot of guys. He's been shining a lot. Lawson's been in the backfield. Quinnen, we talked about Elijah. They've mentioned a little bit, I would say, about DJ Reed. He's got some notice. He's got a couple of interceptions. Yeah. He's got a little bit of noise. What I like about DJ Reed, and this kind of went under the radar, like, I mentioned to you guys, I bring the press conferences. They asked Robert Saleh about DJ Reed, and he said, what I love about him is that he's got a wingspan of a guy that's 6'1". He said he may only be 5'9", but he's got a wingspan of a guy that's really 6'1". And I actually, if you guys want to check it out, I did my episode today on it where I talked about all the numbers too, because DJ Reed said, I'm one of the best corners in the league. So I went back and I looked at the numbers, and I have the numbers together. I can confidently say, yeah, he was one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL last year. Like, that is a fact.
I agree with
Even Quan Alexander, he's making noise too.
Yeah, man. That
And
linebacker room, people were like making fun of it. Now him, CJ, and Quincy, man, that could be an unbelievable
that's a
trio.
That Alabama connection, just like CJ Mosley said in his press conference and social media, he loves that Alabama connection because a couple of them are from there. One of them went to Alabama. I mean, it's like that San Francisco connection. That's what you want. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to
yeah,
see.
absolutely. Speaking on training camp real quick, do you think there's going to be any surprise cuts? Because we have legitimate talent on this team where these players, they're going to get cut and they're going to get picked up right away and they're going to start somewhere else in the NFL. It hurts me to see that. I hate like when you turn on like another game and like you see like our guy like balling out, but it's a good sign for the Jets.
I don't think it's going to happen. Just an interesting surprise one. I want to say I don't think it will happen. But again,
Okay.
if you got Elijah balling out, Garrett balling out, Barrios is obviously going to ball out, and we got some young guys that look good, like Richard looked good in practice the other day. Maybe Joe shops Denzel Mims. I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
happen, but maybe you see it as a team that's willing to give you a second rounder. Or I don't. I mean, he looks really good. Like that's the thing. Like I'm a big fan of how he looks. Like we always thought he could be the guy. Like in his first year, he looked like, oh man, like this could be a wide receiver one. He's got the height,
Yeah,
size, the
agreed.
hands. He looked
Agreed.
great. And last year, I don't know what happened, but I think it was Greenbean who like made the biggest point to me. And like I thought about him, I was like, holy crap, he's right. If you look at
Yeah.
Denzel Mims' career as a whole, last year was really the outlier. Like he was excellent enough to be a potential first round pick. And that's why I didn't even have him going to the Jets in 2020 because most people said he'd be gone by the time we picked. So, and then he had a really good rookie season. So a lot of people chalk it up to obviously being sick. And I think Salah made a good point with it. Again, through the pressers, was a while back this one. Salah pointed out that one of the most important things for wide receivers, and people neglect this, is lower body strength, lower body mass. And Denzel Mims, he said, didn't have that last year because of the illness, because he was so sick and wasn't able to put weight on, and because of how much time he missed. So he didn't know the
Agreed.
playbook. And if you don't know the playbook, that would actually make a lot of sense to why he's lining up in
Yeah.
the wrong places and getting a lot of penalties. He's getting penalties because he doesn't know what's going on. So
Yeah, he's out of the
if
loop.
he can figure this out, man, I don't want him to be on the trade block because, man, I'm just trying to think about, you got Garrett, you got Elijah, you got Tyler
Smith.
Conklin and CJ Ozuma at tight end. You got Barrios in the slot. You got Corey Davis. What if Mims
Jeff
comes
Smith.
on too? Like, I know that it's just insane. It's just the talent is like, it's what you want. It's just stacked.
See, I talked with Gino on this on Monday. I didn't think that he was gonna get cut, but I'm kind of leaning more towards the side. Did you see what Green Bean said with Connor Hughes? I think Connor Hughes made a good point. He had Connor Hughes on a couple weeks ago. It's he was he was drafted for Adam Gaze. Like a lot, like LaFleur, he's not really like like a deep threat kind of guy. I mean, like we saw a lot with Corey Davis last year, but like a lot of his like scheme is like a lot of like slants and like route running. He really values route running, and I don't think that Denzel Mims is really like a route runner. He's more of like a contested catch, like down the field kind of guy.
That is
But
true. Yeah.
that's why there's guys, like when you see him like getting like passed on like the depth chart by guys like Smith and everything, it is kind of scary. And like the penalties and stuff, like you said, I don't see him starting anywhere.
I
And
mean,
I think a
he
second
could get better as a route runner, but yeah, he's not Garrett Wilson or even Elijah Moore or any of
right,
those guys when it comes to that. Yeah.
It's like
and him and
Becton
his
too.
agent, like yeah, we'll get to Becton in a second. With Mims though, he's gonna want, he's a second round draft pick. He's gonna want to go start somewhere. And if there's a team that like you saw, the Broncos, their wide receivers went down. They're both saying they might be out for the whole season. You might see him go to the Broncos or something like that. It's like I said, it's like LaFleur really values route running, and like he could improve, but I don't think that's really his style. That's not what brought him to the dance, so to speak.
And
And
just
we're
quick to
seeing
throw in, because you mentioned guys to be cut, and I was thinking about it in my head. This, I think, would be a surprise one, but you look at that defensive line room. I mean, the interior of that defensive line, you got Quinnen. I like the addition in Solomon Thomas. JFM's supposed to kick on the inside. And I think Jonathan
yep.
Marshall slept on. I really like Jonathan Marshall. So I don't think it's going to happen, but Rankins is making a lot of money, and I could see him be a cut, like a surprise cut,
Vinny Curry.
possibly.
A lot of people are saying Vinny Curry too. A lot
Yeah,
of
what's
people that's
interesting
really
though
getting
is
me
Vinny
is
Curry's a really, really good. That thing I put out today. Vinny Curry's a really good leader. Like he's an outstanding mentor, and the players love him. Like he's a team guy. Like I could actually, if you give me 1 sec, I could actually bring up the
Yeah.
exact quote. It was said by Robert Saleh, so I can give you the verbatim one. He said it
Yeah.
today.
It's like JJ2 has said it about Vinny Curry in his last press conference too.
Yep.
Yeah, he said Vinny Curry's a spark plug full of energy. He's been in the system for a very long time because the same system he's been in the past. He knows it like the back of his hand.
Right.
He said he's not
Right.
afraid of being a mentor, a veteran leader. He said he's always coaching guys up constantly. He's always engaged. He's a team guy. So he's the kind of guy I would be surprised if he got cut. Like he's the kind of guy.
Okay.
Also, because when healthy, he could be a 5, 6, 7 sack guy. Like he could be that guy, a situational pass rusher. So it is a deep room. You're not wrong though. Like that room is
Right.
insanely deep. Like you got Lawson, you got Johnson, you got Clemens, you got
Love Clemens.
Bryce Huff, who's looked really, really good too. And I'm a big fan. They say JFM's playing on the outside, though I thought he'd play on the inside. So I don't know if he factors in. And so you got
Right.
Jacob Martin. So there is a lot of guys on that edge. It might be one of those crazy situations where, like, the Jets only keep a couple of the guys at other positions, like maybe 4 linebackers, 4 defensive interior guys, and keep like 6 edge rushers. It'd be something
It's been
crazy
so
like
long
that.
since we've had the edge rushers.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm hearing on Twitter, like a lot of people are saying that Bryce Hall might be on the chopping block. What do you think about that?
I think that's crazy. I've been saying it since last year. I think the disrespect that Bryce Hall gets is out of control. Like this dude was like, when he came out of Virginia, like this was a guy that I was like, I wanted. Like him and Becton were like, in the part of the reason I fell in love with Joe. Like my wish list was like Mekhi Becton and then Bryce Hall. Like those were the 2 guys I really, really wanted in 2020. I couldn't believe we got him in the 5th round because when healthy, he could have been a top draft guy. And he showed in his rookie year, he played toward the end of the season and he played really well. Last year was his first season starting. And I could bring it up because I've said it till I'm like blue in the face because the numbers he put up last year are crazy impressive. Like you put up what he put up, like you look at what he put up last year and you're like, this is a player starting in just his first season, starting in the NFL. I honestly think, and I think Robert Saleh said it the best. They asked about, when is Sauce going to get the job? Saleh's like, we don't hand things out. He's like, I don't care who's drafted where. You have to earn everything in this job. So he's like, Hall's getting spots on the outside, and he kept saying Hall looks really good. Hall looks excellent.
Yeah.
So I honestly think we're going to probably, this is my opinion, I think we're going to see at least in the beginning until, let's say Sauce and DJ cement themselves, which is possible. But I think at least in the beginning, we're going to see a rotation on the outside between Sauce, DJ, and Bryce Hall. And then on the inside, I think Brandon Echols should get some looks in there because he was really, really good last year on the outside.
I agree too.
Because he was really good last year on the outside, but he's fast as hell. He's quick. He's actually, even though, again, I love Michael Carter II, Brandon Echols is actually jumps higher, is faster, and quicker than Michael Carter II. So I would love to see Brandon Echols and Michael Carter II on the inside with those 3 guys on the outside. I think that makes an unbelievable cornerback room. Like I said it when I had a Buffalo Jet fan on. My thing I presented to him was, is anyone going to be able to throw against us?
I hope not.
I agree with you when it comes to Bryce Hall, especially with Michael Carter too and Echols. We haven't had a deep cornerback line like that in a long time, and it's going to be very tough. But I think it's the perfect amount with the Bryce Hall thing because Bryce Hall, I don't want to see him go. It's like Becton too. Becton was better for Gase, like in his scheme, just like Mims. But I would be surprised if Bryce Hall gets traded.
Well, I think Becton could surprise a lot of people because remember, he didn't play a lot last year. That was the thing. Like, he wasn't playing with Robert Saleh that much. Right. He's very athletic. Like, he's the kind of guy, like, and that's what I loved about him in college. Like, he's a humongous, like, I watched him at Louisville. Like, I stand by it. Like, so many people, I love it. They got their Monday morning. They change their take after, it goes sour.
Yeah.
Becton was always my guy, even over Tristan Wirfs. Becton was my guy. This was the guy I really wanted. I watched him at Louisville. I was like, this man is just a behemoth. He literally puts people down. I'm like, he's going to be a pancake king of the NFL. Like, he's just going to be putting people into the earth. And he's very athletic. Like, he's just as quick and fast as a guy that's 100 pounds lighter than him. So I think he could fit well in this system because he is athletic. And I think that right side with him and AVT could be something nasty. That could be like,
Super
like
Smash Bros.
kind of, I was gonna say kind of ironic, like, back to the old school days of football where the left side is like more the technical side and the left side is that nasty side. Like you don't see
Yep.
that as much anymore, but our line kind of fits that a little bit.
Yeah,
I think our line's going to be stacked this year. I think this would be the best offensive line that we've had in decades.
If
Well,
they can stay
maybe
healthy.
not decades.
They got to stay
Yeah,
healthy.
if
They
they could.
all got to stay on the
I
field.
mean,
That's
like,
fine.
obviously,
staying
we
healthy.
had like Mangold and like DeBrickashaw and like Chris Jenkins. Like that was a stacked
Damian
offensive line
Woody.
too. But that was more of like an older offensive line. Like that offensive line didn't play together for years. Like these guys were all young. They could play together for years. So
Except
I think
McGovern,
that
who honestly is the weakest link of the offensive line. So he's the kind of guy, if
some
all four
people
of these guys play well, you could bring, maybe draft a center next year.
that's exactly what I was just about to say. Some people love him, some people hate him. I was never a
I'm
huge
not.
fan on him, but yeah, exactly. It's like I don't really have like an opinion on him. Like he doesn't really do anything for me. He just snaps the ball. He seems to like do all right. So I'm not too high on him. A couple years ago, I really wanted Creed Humphreys at center. I thought
Oh, dude, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember on Twitter. Like I was championing the bell tower. Like I was the one going
yes,
Creed Humphrey at 23, and everyone's like, "You're out of your mind." I'm like, "He will show you." I was the one, like everyone keeps
yeah,
telling
I
me. 'Cause
wanted
I
him.
kept telling everybody. Like so I was like, "This kid's gonna be great. Take him
Right.
at." People are like, "You don't want to take him to 34." I was like, "Shit, I'll take him at 23." Everyone's like, "You're
Right.
out of your mind." He's like one of the best players out of college in the last few years. Like not
Yeah.
even just in his position, like one of the best players out of college, period. And that's what I
Yep.
liked about him. And that's what center, I don't get why it's not what it used to be. Center's like an
It's not.
underappreciated position. Like people are like, you don't draft them high, they don't matter. I still feel like center and left tackle are the most important positions on that offensive line. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
Sal went through a whole thing the other day, which was really interesting, talking about, because I thought this was important too, because so many people, the second they announced Becton was going to play right tackle, everyone was like, "Oh, he's only a right tackle. Oh, he's going to make all this money." For some reason, and I'm going to look it up because I remember this in the presser. I didn't put it out on Twitter yet, but Saleh went into a whole thing, and I don't think anyone put this out. I don't know if you guys heard this. Saleh went into a whole thing when they were talking about Mekhi playing right tackle. He said, "Okay, wait a minute. In the modern NFL," he said, "I personally don't see a difference anymore between left tackle and right tackle." He said, "In
No.
this modern NFL, it's all about mismatches," is what he said. He's like, I believe, if I'm correct, the example he gave was like, if Von Miller normally lines up on the right side, but if the mismatch is on the left side of the line, you think he's not going to go there? Like, he's like, it's all
Yeah,
about
exactly.
mismatches in a lineup. Like, he's like, there's no difference now between that left tackle being better than the right tackle. So I thought that was important because even though no one's talking about it, that kind of nipped that whole conversation in the bud. And another thing that wasn't mentioned, he ended it by saying Mekhi Becton's left tackle days are far from over. And for some
Yeah.
reason
agree.
that wasn't said. Like no one said that. Like that kind of wasn't, yeah. So
Well, because Rich Samini screwed that tweet up when he quoted and he said, Robert Saleh said that his left tackle days are over. I mean, he went back and fixed it. But it's just like, see, like this is the kind of stuff
that's the thing.
that we're
Yeah,
talking.
I put it out on
You
my
know,
page saying, that
yeah,
I specifically said that Robert Saleh ended it by saying his left tackle days aren't over, which makes total sense. But I think his explanation again was perfect, kind of like Tristan Wirfs. If he's a Pro Bowl right tackle, the dude's getting paid. They're going to keep him. People
yeah.
like he doesn't have to, because so many people were freaking out. Oh, we gave the 11th overall pick for a right tackle. Like that was a lot that was happening right after they announced that. And I think what Robert Saleh said, even though again it
And
wasn't really talked
we have
about
an anchor on the offensive line that protects our quarterback. It's a huge need.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a matchup alignment. Like you said, that's the big thing he focused on. He's like, all teams care about now are mismatches in the lineups. He said defensive ends can line up anywhere. Everyone goes everywhere. So he said the idea of
Right.
this or that being here or there, he said none of that matters anymore, was his take.
And I've been playing football since like middle school, and like even like in middle school, I weighed like 120 pounds, if that. And because I wrestled, they wanted me on the offensive line, which I got my clock cleaned a couple of times. I didn't belong on the offensive line, but on the offensive line, like the coaches, they wanted you to know every position on the offensive line. So there's no more like, oh, I'm only a left tackle, I'm only a left guard, I'm only a right. You have to know you have to understand every position that's being asked of you on that offensive line, which I'm sure at the pro level it's 100 times more. And somebody like Mekhi Becton, I think he could handle it.
And bro, offensive linemen don't get enough credit. Like you said, you played offensive
No,
line. I'll say it myself. Like in freshman football, they put me at offensive line. I'm a smart
yeah,
dude. I do well in school. Man, I screwed up every freaking, like, I was supposed to hit the A gap and hit the B all the time. Glaser, what the hell is wrong? Like just screaming to the point where finally the coach was like, okay, he grabbed me, turned me around and said, okay, you're now a defensive end. Your job is to just get to the quarterback. And
Yep.
that was kind of when I started playing defense, because I just
Yep.
couldn't, like, I just kept getting it wrong. Like, I wouldn't pull or I wouldn't hit the right gap, and it would screw everything up, and I would just get reamed out. To finally, he's like,
Yeah,
no,
I have
we're
to.
going to turn you around. And I got to the quarterback a few times. He's like, okay, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. I've screwed it up too. It's like, like sometimes like with the pulls, I would mess up on like plays I'm supposed to pull on, and I remember like my coach like grabbed me like by the pads, and I didn't pull on a play. He's like, you go here, and he like throws me. He's like, you go there, like he's flipping out. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
I make the analogy all the time. I think offensive linemen are like the frontline soldiers in combat. They're the guys that put all the work, all the blood, all the toil, all the sweat, yet they get none of the credit. It's the general in the back.
Absolutely.
It's the quarterback that's getting all the credit. None of those grunt line soldiers are getting any of the mention. So I kind of equate offensive linemen like that. And defensive linemen too. Though defensive linemen do get more credit because they are going after the quarterback.
Their plays show a lot more than the offensive line. The offensive line, you see them kind of,
Yeah, they always say with offensive linemen, if you don't hear anything, that's a good thing.
So. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So going through the season now, switching gears, you want to go through our schedule real quick and see what you think?
Yeah. Let me bring it up right now. And I actually put it out earlier today, and I believe this, man. I truly do. I look at this team. I think it's stacked. I think this team is absolutely stacked. So I truly believe that it comes down to, again, Zach Wilson, who I think will be great. But if Zach Wilson plays well, I think this team could beat anybody. I legitimately think if he plays well, this team could beat anyone. Like, I honestly do feel that way.
I agree.
But, like, going through the schedule, quickly you look at it, like, the Raven game, I think Lamar is playing, right? Or is he?
Yeah.
As far as I know, he is.
Yeah, I don't know why. I remember hearing there was a story about him a couple of days ago.
No, you're right. No, I looked this up, and there was a rumor that he wasn't going to play now.
Okay, good, because I thought I heard something. Like, what?
No, you're not.
That's BS. That's not real.
I mean, we'll figure it out. He's got a month to figure it out. But
maybe they're trying to screw with the Jets and like last minute be like, here comes Lamar.
It's like
I think that's the perfect matchup for Week 1, though, because the Ravens are a tough team, and that's going to be. That's going to be a really telling moment for the Jets, like how far they're coming with their talent.
Week 1's, I mean, you don't want it to happen, but Week 1's kind of the time where if you make mistakes, you can tell them. You can be like, okay, that clearly didn't work. We're not doing the right thing against this defense.
Yeah.
If Lamar plays, it is a home game. That is the thing. It does skew it a little bit, and that's why I feel like makes it tough because there's so many variables. Being a home game changes a lot. That definitely
it's a home opener too. Every big fan comes out for
the home opener, and it's also the home opener. It's the first game with fans because of COVID, so like that's huge in itself. Well, there's gonna be
Gino's gonna be going nuts,
but it's like the first regular season game, like with the fans in the stands. So
yeah.
Okay, now
I'll be honest. I think that game could go either way. Like I would normally give it to the Ravens, but I think again, the Jets being home,
it's gonna go down to the fourth quarter for me. I really think so.
I think so. I think that could be
Yeah.
But I think they beat the Browns, man. The Browns are deciding to turn themselves into the Jets with like the decisions they're making. They're like, we're going to make the worst possible decision so that everybody laughs at us. They trade for Deshaun Watson, and then like literally a day later, like all the reports come out, hey, he did do it, and it's like, oh, didn't you just pay that guy $150 million like 24 hours ago?
Yeah.
Can you get that back? That's what I'm thinking. Like, if I'm the guy, like, is there a 24-hour rule? Like, can I be like, we were kidding?
Yeah. Monopoly money.
Like
give it back.
Buyback clause. And now the NFL's appealing, that whole 6.
I still can't believe 6. I still think that's crazy, man. Like all I want to say, I don't know what's true and what's not, because it seems like, and I pointed this out too. I think it might have been, and it's possible, it might have been Deshaun Watson's attorneys and the team he put together, like kind of spinning it all. Because I pointed this out and it kind of bothered me a lot. Maybe you guys feel differently. Before the trial, like before all that, we were kind of under the impression that it wasn't true. It was lies. He was being raked through the coals. It was BS. They were dragging his good name through the mud. And then clearly all this stuff is coming out. Like his team did a phenomenal job, almost with like fake news in a way, of like trying to spin it like it didn't, convincing everybody that it didn't happen. He literally got the first trial. It got dismissed, if I think correctly. They dropped all the charges. And then that's when a bunch of women afterward came forward and said, now that everything's been, dropped, we're not going to stay silent. And like, that was just... Crazy.
What are they
All was
appealing?
it?
They're appealing the 6-game suspension to have it be more.
They want it lowered or higher to
They
be
want it
more?
higher. They want it
They
to be
wanted
more.
higher, which
Yeah.
Okay,
I was
that's
gonna
what
say
I
I was
thought.
actually surprised. I was surprised. Like we've seen guys with, and again,
Yeah.
I'm not condoning anything. I'm not condoning anything here, but we've seen guys with marijuana offenses get a year or two. Like this
Yeah,
is a guy
no.
that did like, and again, I don't know what's, but if what I was reading in the reports are real, it's disgusting. Like it's absolutely
Yeah.
disgusting what he was doing. I feel like I thought it was going to be years. Like I thought it was going to be like, what was it? It was Josh Gordon that got the first indefinite one. I thought
yeah.
Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
was going to get the second ever indefinite. That's
And
what I
Ray
honestly
Rice,
thought might happen.
What Ray Rice?
Something
And
like
not only that,
like him, yeah.
not only that, like the NFL, like didn't they like appoint this judge? So like they go through like all this work to get this judge to like handle this, and then like they're just like appealing what she says anyway.
Because it looks bad. Like that's the thing. Like 6
It
games.
does. No, it
Like you
does.
said,
It
if you
does look
look at
bad.
it compared to what other people got, it's like it looks like you're not taking it serious. Because it's true. Like again, I don't know what's real or not, but if the accusations are true, it's deplorable. Deshaun Watson is
Agree.
literally a freaking
He should never play another snap in the NFL.
That's what DJ Bieniemy said, actually. When DJ
He
was
should.
still with the Jets, he actually, after reading it, he's like, I don't think Watson will ever play again. I thought he was right. That's why I thought it was crazy Cleveland paid him the money. I thought he'd never play again. When I heard 6 games, I honestly thought it was a joke. I thought 6 games was a joke. Yeah. I thought it was like a joke and someone was trying to be funny. And then I was like, oh, shit, it's not a joke.
I expected it because the way the NFL's track record is with all these suspensions is awful. So it's like...
You mean it's like disproportionate, you mean?
Well, it's the way they handled it, like the way they've been handling, like especially with the Josh Gordon stuff with Ridley. You know, some of the suspensions I feel like are either okay, that's appropriate, like that sounds about right, but some of them's like okay, they didn't
like Calvin Ridley,
like they didn't take the time.
Like that's the thing, he got a year. Like he got a year, and Deshaun Watson got 6 games. Like that's crazy to me.
I mean, Ben Roethlisberger only got 6 games. And that should have been more, in my opinion. But
that's a good point too.
But it's one of those things where the NFL's track record when it comes to these kind of things hasn't been great. So that's why I think they're appealing, and I think they're trying to do more so they don't go backwards. But everyone that Harrison, Liam, it hasn't been great the way Goodell has managed some of this stuff. So I'm happy the way that they're actually going to appeal. We'll see what happens. Yeah. He might still get this 6 games, but I hope it changes overall.
Yeah, they pretend to be this fundraising group, and like they're all for like the charities and like the breast cancer and this, like they pretend to be these great guys, and they're really not. At least up to this point, the NFL really has not been.
You're not wrong. It's the best example. Do you remember the movie Concussion with Will Smith?
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like that showed a lot of it. That showed a lot. Yes. And it's true. I mean, they do good things, but of course, they're making tons of money from it. They're making massive amounts of money. It's more jerseys. It's more sales. They're targeting the female market so that women will potentially buy. There's business behind all of it. It's definitely true. I think if there was no possibility of profit whatsoever, you wouldn't see them doing things like that.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I hope in the future that it gets corrected. I like what they do, and I don't like what they do, but I hope this Deshaun Watson thing that they get it right, and that brings
they need to.
Yeah, exactly. I think counting on it too with the Bengals game. Okay, I think we're going to lose that one because it's going to be a revenge game for Burrow, and because we won against them last year. What do you think?
And they're a quality team. I mean, that's especially if you win the Raven game. If you win the Raven game, it'd be natural that you would lose the next home game to a really good team like the Bengals. So if they do win the Raven game and win the Brown game, then I would say they would probably lose the Bengal game.
Right.
What do you have? You have us at 2-1 right now?
Yeah, we're 2-1. Well, you guys think? Well, the Raven game, honestly, I was saying the same thing. Fourth quarter, I think that's a tough one to call. That's a really tough one.
I think we'll win. It'll go down the fourth quarter in overtime. I really do.
Oh, bro, MetLife will explode if that happens.
Yeah, it will give me that Eric Decker vibe when they beat the Patriots.
It's also, you're going to be there. So you want it to be like overtime, the 19th hour. Zach Wilson hits Elijah Moore. The scoreboard explodes.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss my flight.
You don't care at that point. You're like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, no, just live at MetLife. Exactly. We'll live with the feral cats that are there during the week.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
I think we could beat the Steelers, man. I mean, what are they going with their rookie, or are they going with?
Okay, so the rumor is right now that they have full confidence that Trubisky can be the guy, but Rudolph is winning right now. Rudolph is winning between all three of them, but Herbert has looked the best out of all three. They're giving us mixed signals because they're saying, okay, we have full confidence in Trubisky. We think he might be the guy, but Herbert is killing it in training camp right now. But they said that Rudolph is leading it right now. So I'm like,
I kind of
okay.
thought like
It's a cheap answer.
when they drafted they drafted Pickett, I want to say.
Yes, yeah, Kenny Pickett.
When they
yep.
drafted Pickett, I kind of figured that was it for Rudolph, right? Like I thought that was their way of saying Rudolph's not the answer. We're washing our hands. Right. So I think it's interesting that he's getting first team reps.
Yeah, they're basically saying this could be the guy, or this could be the guy, or this could be the guy. Like they're not really saying
what
much.
door do you want to choose?
Yeah,
exactly.
pretty much.
I don't know, man.
And that's where Mitch Trubisky, I don't know. I don't think he can be the guy. So that's why I like it.
No,
and same thing with Mason Rudolph too. It feels
I don't
like
think he's the guy.
It feels like you're early in practice. All these guys look good. You know what I mean? They're throwing in pads with nobody coming at them. There's no scheme or anything. It's not game time. A lot of guys look really good in this situation. So
hey, maybe it helps us out.
Maybe. That's what I'm thinking. Because if it's Rudolph or Trubisky, neither one of those guys, I don't think, are the answer. That's why they took Pick. What I don't get is, I guess he's not ready. I thought they would like cut Rudolph and be like, okay, Pickett's going to be the guy and Trubisky's the backup. I know that's crazy, but I thought they were.
I thought it was going to be the other way around. Trubisky then Pickett. But I don't know why they love Rudolph so much. So we'll see. I don't know.
He knows the system. He's been around for a couple of years.
Pickett.
What, Harrison?
They love Rudolph so much that they drafted Pickett.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't get
it makes total sense.
Right. Who knows? Who knows with the Steelers? Mike Tomlin, he always has something up his sleeve, right?
So I think we could beat them. But that's true. It is Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are always good. Like that's the thing. Like even when you don't think they'll be good, they'll be good.
Oh, they always surprise everybody.
So, yeah.
Dolphins. What do you got? Dolphins.
I think, interestingly enough, we're going to split the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins, our team will split. The question is, do we win the home game or do we win the away game? I think it comes down to momentum. So, like, if we beat the Ravens, Browns, lose to the Bengals, beat the Steelers, we're 3-1 at that point. I think we can make it 4-1. I think they're going to come in really excited. You know, like, we're 3-1. We can make this 4-1. Like, 4-1 is very different than 3-2 in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
So I think they could do that. They could beat the Dolphins, but let's be real, they're not beating the Packers. it's probably not happening.
Why not?
I would love it. I would love it.
They're the week before that the Packers are playing in England. They're coming back. You know, they don't have the bye week in between. A lot of teams take the bye week in between the England and the next week. So I mean, you know, they're not the same. They don't have, you know, Devontae Adams and stuff.
Yeah, but they still have Aaron Rodgers. Like that's the thing. Like it doesn't like
yes.
you can it's like Tom Brady. It doesn't matter who he has. Rodgers threw 450 yards.
Right. I'm just saying it's not. I agree that it's going to be a loss. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think that this. Right. I hope it's not exactly, but I don't think it's as scary as people are making it out to be. I mean, like they might have a little bit of jet lag. You don't know. That could be a trap game for us, I think.
Maybe
that might be our one trap. That might, you know, we beat the Titans and the Bengals last year. That was kind of two trap games. This might be a trap game. You know, we tend to play the Packers hard too, so you never know. I'm going to mark it down as a loss as low, but
I think I remember. I think it was like, remember that Packer game? I think it was like 13-0 we lost. It was like such a defensive.
We were up 17-0.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yep, I do. That was 2013, 2014. We were up 17-0 and somehow blew the game. But I mean, I'm gonna mark it down as a loss, but I wouldn't be surprised with the win though either, honestly.
Patriots.
Home or away?
After the Packers come the Broncos, I think.
Okay, no, you're right.
Yeah, after the Packers come the Broncos, man.
In Denver, that's tough.
Elway knows what he's doing. Elway knows what he's doing. He got himself Russell Wilson. Like that team was good to begin with. Like we always needed a quarterback. Man, I think the Broncos are gonna like Elway's gonna surprise a lot of people. Like that team is gonna be awesome.
The only thing is
Russell Wilson's your quarterback. He's amazing.
I agree with you. I think the sky's the limit for Russell Wilson. I think it's his team to lose because Tim Patrick is out now. It's the past 3 years that their top wide receivers has gone out with injuries. And this year, it's Tim Patrick. Last year, it was Sutton. The year before, it was Judy. So, like, I think now Tim Patrick's out of the picture. Sutton and Judy got to step up now. or they could go out and trade and maybe get an Odell Beckham Jr. or something. So
Didn't Judy get in trouble recently too?
he did too, exactly. So Sutton is the only one kind of in there. So
It's
I'm
hard to
kind
play
of
in Denver though.
curious. I'm curious. Their defense is always good. Just like you said, the Broncos are always good. LA definitely knows what he's doing.
That's the thing.
I feel like
he knows what he's doing.
LA goes through quarterbacks like every 2 years.
He really was trying,
Yeah.
man. Like shit. Like he got Peyton. He got Peyton. I feel like he's just been like trying to replicate that. He's been trying to replicate five.
Yeah.
And he's been failing ever since.
Right.
But he's got Russell Wilson. I mean, you can't. It's really
Is
hard.
Bridgewater
to
still there?
Wilson.
Do they still have Bridgewater?
Does
anybody?
Yeah.
Is he he was a Saint for a little
second?
while, right?
Is he second?
I'm not sure now. I got to look it up.
I gotta look that up too because I don't know.
He was a Saint.
Or is he? No, he's not with the Saints anymore.
He's a quarterback for the
Yeah,
Dolphins.
the Saints have Winston.
Oh, that's right.
It says Bridgewater's on the Dolphins. So basically,
Really?
if anything happens to Tua, we're going to see Bridgewater.
Wow, I didn't know that. I had no idea.
I didn't remember either. I remembered he was on the Saints for a
but I
while.
forgot.
I lit it up.
If they start Bridgewater, I think they'd be a lot more of a decent team.
I like Bridgewater. Man. I always did.
I do too.
Liked him.
I wish the Jets kept him a couple years ago.
When he was with the Vikings, when they drafted him, I always thought he could be a franchise quarterback. He was the kind of guy I'm like, this could be the guy. So
he's almost like a Fitzpatrick. He puts up like the numbers and everything, but he just bounces from. He doesn't really have the time to build something. You know, like get a couple years under his belt. You know, get like the chemistry with the wide receivers. I think. All right, Gino, who's up next?
But with Denver, what's interesting though, because you mentioned so many guys getting hurt with Seattle. Russell Wilson always made it work with nobodies, if you think about it. Like, for some reason, Seattle just, until they got DK Metcalf, they just decided to invest nothing in wide receivers. So he'd be throwing to a guy you didn't even know who it was. And I'd have to Google
they had like Percy Harvin.
Figure out who caught the ball.
Right.
Like, I remember like Tyler Lockett became something, but at first he was nobody. Like, it was a lot of nobodies that became something. So Russell's the kind of guy, I mean, doesn't matter when he's around. I think it's lightning in a bottle.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
That's a loss. I think we're all agreeing, right? That's a loss.
I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to be realistic.
We have to have some. Yeah, we have to have some. Yeah. I don't want to lose.
Patriots, what we got?
I think Patriots, same thing like Dolphins. I think we'll split them, but just for fun, let's switch it. Let's say the Patriots beat us at home, and then we beat them in New England. That could be interesting.
I like that.
So I guess we'll say we lose that one. Buffalo, man, Buffalo's tough, man. I mean, Josh Allen, like, they're like, they're one of the best teams in football. Like, literally one of the best teams, and I hate that because I personally don't like the Buffalo Bills. So them being one of the best teams in football really makes me sad.
I agree.
I don't think we can beat them. I think that's a team that we could potentially lose both, if I'm being honest.
I think so too. I was gonna say
I don't want to say it.
When I did my schedule like prediction video, I had a splitting, but I'm having a really hard time like getting myself to actually believe in my gut that we're going to split with them.
Yeah, they're the kind of team that could easily just be 12, 13, 14 wins. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially with the next game with the Bears. Easy win. I think that's
that one. Yeah, that one. Especially because it's going to probably be Fields most likely. So
stomp out Justin Fields.
Zach Wilson's just going to light him up.
The Vikings is interesting. I think
Kirk
the Vikings
Cousins.
were going to go down in the fourth quarter because Justin Jefferson. I'm worried about Jefferson. I'm always worried about Jefferson. And Cook if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, then maybe I don't know. But Cousins. I mean Cousins. Who knows, right?
I feel bad for the Vikings. I think I don't want to. I feel really bad for them because they took the one quarterback that I thought was not like he was the one guy I didn't like Kellen Mond. I didn't think he. I don't like his footwork at all. He feels very clunky back there and not very fluid. I don't like he was one guy like I didn't even want to be part of. Like I watched a little bit of film on him and I was like next. Like this was a guy I just like I feel bad, but I definitely don't think the Vikings have anything in that. But I could be wrong.
I think the Lions with the Lions though, I think it's going to go down the fourth quarter too because they're just like the Jets. You know, they're hungry. It's a new team. They drafted really well. I think.
I like Dan Campbell too.
Dan Campbell's a great coach. I've always liked Dan Campbell. So
that better be a win though. I mean, we got to beat the teams that we're in the same tier as.
That needs to be a win. That needs to be a win. The Lions.
Yeah, I would give you that. I don't know why I'm blinking. You got to give them so much credit for being able to get Hutchinson. Like that was a guy that a Detroit
from Michigan.
Like, that was huge. A Michigan guy, like that was just That was so
That's their
big
boy.
for them. Like, I think
They
when
got
he didn't go first, I think they ran up so fast somebody pulled something. Like, that was huge to be able to get Hutchinson. Like, that's
everybody thought he was going first too.
Yeah.
I think it shocked a lot of people that I don't know why I'm blanking on the Georgia kid.
Walker.
Walker.
Trevor Walker.
I think that surprised a lot of people because people were saying he could go first, but I didn't see it.
It was Aiden Hutchinson. He was like the consensus #1 pick.
Yeah.
It just shows you how much the Jacksonville Jaguars know, how competent they are.
Dang, what about the Jaguars? Speaking of the Jaguars, what do you think about that game?
I'm trying to go to that game, the Thursday night
game. I think we can beat them.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, I think
we
so
can
too.
And that would be huge. I mean, think about that. If what we just said happens, that means Zach Wilson just beat Justin Fields and then beat Trevor Lawrence. That would be huge. That would be huge.
Especially they keep talking about how, especially ESPN, CBS, how Zach Wilson ain't going to make that leap, that they're all thinking that Trevor Lawrence and Jones and Fields are going to be the next. I'm like, get out of here. Get out of here.
No, Gino's from New York now, yes.
No, forget about it. So it's and we all know what the Dolphins game is going to be like. I agree with you. We'll split that one. I think this Seahawks game, we got to win that one.
I was going to say, I think we can beat them. They're one of
those
teams
that stop out Jamal Adams.
Dysfunction right now. Yeah. Which is just, I mean, geez, you could talk about that. Just what happened to Jamal Adams is just the most ultimate poetic justice. Like, it's just so beautiful. Like, it was like Jet fans were finally gifted with something beautiful that they can laugh at and not be the butt of the joke and be like, look what happened. Like, you left to be on a Super Bowl contending team. Since you've been there, that team is now, it fell apart and is now worse than us. They're statistically considered worse than we are. Like,
imagine if he was still on the Jets, though, if he was still on the Jets, though, man, that'd be a serious defense.
I think, again, the safety room, you only need two guys, and you got one in Jordan Whitehead. Whitehead is a thumper. He's a bruiser. He's going to be excellent in center field, calling out plays and being a leader. You only need one more guy. And LaMarcus Joyner, when he played safety, he was excellent. He was people forget, and I pointed this out, when he exclusively played safety in the NFL. Did you know he isn't? Yeah, but even when he played with the Raiders, like, whenever he dabbled in it, if you took all of his time at safety, did you know he has a career 90.1 PFF grade when exclusively playing safety? Like, people don't give him, and I give you a perfect example of like Charles Woodson. Like, you look at Charles Woodson at 30, 31, he started to struggle keeping up on the outside with corners. They moved him to safety. He had 4 all-pro years. So just because LaMarcus Joyner's 32, that doesn't mean anything, man. Like, I think him and Whitehead could be a real legit duo. And I think a guy that's really slept on is Jason Pinnock. I really like Jason Pinnock. Like, he's a guy I loved out of last year's draft. Like, loved him.
Absolutely.
I agree. Because I watched him. I used to work for the St. Louis Rams, and I saw him all the time and what he did with the Rams, and especially what he did with the Raiders. But people kept switching him to cornerback sometimes. I'm like, no, he's perfect where he's at. And just keep him there. That's why I think he'll have a bounce back year with Whitehead. And he's with the influence that he has with Pinnock and Ashton Davis, it's just going to be clutch. It's going to be clutch. But yeah, that wraps it up because we all know about the Dolphins and stuff. So where are you guys at?
Yeah, where are we standing? I had us pretty much pegged at about 8 or 9 wins.
I don't know. Yeah, I had us at 9 and 8. I lost track on this one, but
I have me at 9 wins. 9 wins. Yeah. I think if we come out with 10, that's phenomenal. But 9 wins, since they added that 17th week, it's going to be hard. So I think 9 wins is good. If we even get 8,
dude, 8 or 9 would be
17 and 0. 17 and 0. I'm calling it now.
It's so confusing now. Like, I want to say 9 and 7. It's like, wait, no, it's 9 and 8.
We can't do that anymore.
It's confusing. You got to remember the extra, But 8 or 9 is awesome. I think, and that's honestly, I feel like when I looked at the roster, I felt like 8 or 9 was kind of like our standard / floor a little bit. So again, like we said, if Zach's playing really well and he's killing it, and you can swing a couple of those games. Now you have 10 wins. Now you have 11 wins. We could totally sneak into the playoffs. Like, we could totally be one of those teams that maybe gets a wild card.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to be playing meaningful games in December.
Right.
You know, I'm
And
tired of
Salah
talking
said the
about the
same thing.
draft in
Like, ask
October.
Salah. He says that a lot. He says that's the goal. Joe said the same thing. The goal is to play. I think
Yep.
Joe literally said that. Joe said the goal is to play meaningful games in December.
Agreed.
I'm just sick of talking about the draft in October. You know, like it's not
Yeah,
fun.
no, that's. I even joke about that. Like you mentioned, you know, like with my presence on like Twitter and stuff. Back in like 2020, when I started doing a lot of Jet stuff, I was doing a lot of past stuff because there was nothing good to talk about. Like it was the
Right.
Adam Gase turning this to shit. So I was talking about remember David Harris and remember like I was looking
Yeah,
at
I did.
old
Yep.
linebackers like Kevin Linton and all. I was bringing up old stats and numbers and Don Maynard. I noticed I was looking toward the past a lot. And man, since Joe Douglas has been here, it's
We
always
could look
eyes toward the
towards.
future. Eyes toward the
Yep.
future.
Tunnel vision, man.
I agree. Well, Harrison, my last question is your wife. What does she think about what you do with the Jets? What does she think about your routines with the Jets? What does she think about it overall? Because you are involved in the Jets community and Twitter and half your life. My wife is always like, okay, I guess I got to go upstairs because Gino's going to yell again. So what is it like with you and your wife?
See, I think this is a big thing, and I recommend this, you know, to anybody, you know, in any kind of relationship. It's
Right.
important, you know, that it's all about give and take. You know, it's all about, you know, you got to be present. So like that was a big thing with me. Like when I first started on Twitter, I was doing a lot, you know, trying, but now, you know, I try to bring as much as I can, but I always, you know, try to spend time with her when I can. We were always
Right.
hanging out. You know, I purposely made a point. Like I used to be a little worse with it. Like when I first started, definitely was a lot worse with wanting to check to see like what just happened and this and that. I've gotten better with, you know, trying to disconnect and only do it maybe a few times a day, spend most of my time with her.
Right.
So
Yeah. I have one question for you before we go too. What are your predictions for Zach Wilson? Like, what do you think his stats are going to be? And
So it's the same thing. Like, I mean, if Elijah Moore is an 1,000-yard receiver, Corey Davis, people neglect to realize, has the potential to be a 1,000-yard receiver. Like last year when he was playing, if he would
he
have,
was on
if he would
pace.
have kept, if he would have
on
kept the
pace.
trajectory he was going, he was on pace for his first 1,000-year season. So you got Garrett Wilson. It's not inconceivable that Zach Wilson could have high 3,000, low 4,000 yards, which would be insane because, as you guys know, we've only ever had one quarterback break 4,000 yards, and that
Guy
was
right
Joe
behind
Namath.
you, Gino.
Okay, exactly. And I don't know if you could see him. He's my plaque. I don't know if you can tell that.
Oh,
That's
yep.
my
Yeah,
There
I
he
plaque.
is.
see it. Yeah.
It's Joe Namath. Yeah, like got to have him up there. I mean, he's our guy. So
Yeah.
he was the only one to ever break 4,000 yards. And we do have to point out, like I know a lot of older Jet fans like to point out, he did it in a different time. Like he did it at a time where a cornerback could basically shank the wide receiver.
Right. Right. No,
Like
you're
just
right.
hold him down and mug him and slit his
Right.
throat and leave him on the field.
It's true. It's true. It was a different era.
It was totally different era. Like people don't get that. They go back and they try to compare stats. It's like, come on, man. Like you can't go back.
4,000 yards in today's NFL is not hard to.
Yeah, like Johnny Unitas was one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. He created, this is a fact, Peyton Manning talks about this all the time. He created the modern quarterback position. The modern drop back quarterback position literally exists because of him. And you see people saying, oh, his numbers weren't that great. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah, shut
like,
up. Dude.
What are you doing? Like, you can't compare those different eras. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, it's crazy, but you see that. People being like, oh, their numbers weren't so good. It's
I agree.
All right. Anything else, anybody? Or
I'm good to go, Harrison. Thank you for being on the show. We appreciate you. We'll have you on in the future too, as well.
Maybe during the season or something.
Oh, definitely, man. This was awesome. I love chatting it up with Jet fans, just talking about stuff and having a conversation. So anytime, man. Literally anytime, let me know. Happy to hop on and chat with you.
Perfect. So one more time, where can we follow you on social media? Where can
definitely,
Jet fans
yes.
connect
You can
with you?
find me at Twitter at NYJets, TF Media. You can find me on YouTube at the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. You can subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Again, on Monday, I do a live show, which I'd love you guys to tune in. We have a conversation, usually, just talk about stuff. And, on
what
Tuesday,
time's your live show?
The live show is 7 p.m.
Okay.
7 p.m. Yeah. And for all the fans, I always say, come in, we chat about stuff. I throw the questions up, the comments up. We have a conversation. So it's a lot of fun. And then I put out, videos throughout the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I put out videos you'll see on my channel. So you guys could definitely subscribe to the channel out there. It'd be very
Absolutely.
much appreciated.
I think I already did subscribe. I subscribed last year.
Much appreciated, man.
Yeah. Of course, man. You put out great content,
I really
Harrison, one of the best in the game, man.
I really
Yes,
appreciate
you for
that. Thank you
coming
so
on.
much, man.
Amen.
So,
Love it.
all right, like I said, everybody, if you guys did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Really helps us out. Please subscribe to the channel. Really helps us out as well. Thank you guys for watching. Follow us on all social media platforms at Everything NYJ. You all have a good night now. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Harrison.
It's
Have
been
a
a
good one,
pleasure. Thank you
fellas.
for having me.